I'm here with America's comedian Kurt Metzger and the host of The Dive, Jackson the Hair Hinkle. And guess what happened? They're expanding NATO 95 to 1 to 1, right? So they got one person, it was a draw. The judges couldn't decide. 95 1 and 1. That was my UFC record, by the way. 95 1 to 1. Senate votes to approve a resolution in favor of Finland and Sweden joining NATO. Now, that's NATO is no longer a defense coalition of states. What it is a offensive coalition of states, and that goes around bombing people for energy, to steal their energy resources.
I believe the great George W. Bush said that to those pranksters in those words.
Yeah.
We just want to use it defensively, but I said...
Yes. So guess the only person who voted against it, again, was a Republican, Josh Hawley. He voted against it. So this is not one progressive, not one. And there's Rand Paul voted present. So that's where you get the 95 1 to 1. Rand Paul, why not fucking take a stand? So here I am to remind everybody that NATO is a scam. Right. And Chomsky's going to explain it to you.
Propaganda we were fed all those years. I mean, if NATO was there to defend the West from the Russians, why is it now expanding right to the borders of Russia, becoming a global U.S. intervention force, protecting sea lanes and pipelines and so on? What that tells us is all the talk about the Cold War was just a pure lie. And there's plenty more evidence for that, which we could go into, educated in.
Hang on, let me play that again.
Propaganda we were fed all those years. I mean, if NATO was there to defend the West from the Russians, why is it now expanding right to the borders of Russia, becoming a global U.S. intervention force, protecting sea lanes and pipelines and so on? What that tells us is all the talk about the Cold War was just a pure lie. And there's plenty more evidence for that, which we could go into, educated in.
So NATO is just there to protect shipping lanes and energy transfers. And it was all a lie. So that's what Chomsky reminds us. But the focus of this, so that's horrible. So if you hear everybody else is saying, yay, Finland and, was it Sweden? Yeah, Finland and Sweden joined NATO. And I'm sure everybody on the news is all happy about it. It's horrible.
Are they going to be paying their own NATO fees for once, by the way? Or are we paying for that?
So here's why this. So here's my guess as to why this is happening. And Jackson, you make your guess. The military-industrial complex, when you join NATO, each country has to spend a certain amount of money. I think it's 2% or something like that of their budget or GDP on military hardware. You have to have a certain amount of stuff. And so where are they going to get that from? They're going to buy it from the military-industrial complex. And so they own the politicians. So those politicians, they pressure other countries to join NATO and spend that money on weapons. And that's exactly what's happening. Jackson, does that make sense to you, that explanation?
Yeah, I mean, at a time of an inflation crisis, economic crisis, our military is spread so thin beyond belief already. They think it's a good idea to waste more of our public resources to send more arms and service members into Sweden and Finland to try and provoke Russia yet again by more than doubling the amount of territory that Russia borders with NATO member states.
And now, why wouldn't a progressive senator, say like Bernie Sanders, be against something like this? Because that's what progressives are supposed to do. If you're a peace person or an anti-war person, you would be against this 100% because this is just more expansion of the military-industrial complex and the saber-rattling with nuclear powers. Why do you think Bernie? Because what's your guess?
My guess is it's the truth. It's probably what you'd say. They're not progressives, and it should be noted that the Squad and Ro Khanna all voted for expanding NATO to Finland and Sweden as well. Jeez. And they're doing so because they're not progressives and they are weak-minded, nutless wonders, as you so often put it.
Well, you're in trouble because you're being mean to our best shot. Yeah. You're trying to tank our best shot at getting progressive legislation. That's what people say, our best shot.
I can't believe how much is like they have to buy like hockey equipment. This is like the same scam as Little League hockey when you join.
Yes.
You got to buy all the.
Yes. That's what it's like. So when you join,
I got NATO practice.
I got NATO practice. So Glenn Greenwald didn't let this go by. He said Bernie's talking about Bernie Sanders, doesn't even pretend anymore to have anything resembling a left-wing foreign policy or any minimal divergence from the neocon-driven Democratic Party's foreign policy dogma. Opposing NATO expansion was long a mainstream liberal view. Now only Hawley and Rand Paul will get near it.
Well, what would be the point of him pretending anymore? Like, what's the point?
You mean Bernie?
Yeah.
Right? He won't even go.
He's not running again, right?
It would still pass. Just vote against it anyway. It's still going to pass.
You know, Hawley voted against it. I didn't hear Rand Paul's present vote explanation, but Hawley voted against it. And he said, we really need to vote no on this because we shouldn't be focusing on NATO expansion and the neoliberal world order. We should be focused on building up our military to counter China. That was his grand explanation.
Who was that?
Hawley, the guy who voted Josh.
So yeah. Well, he did the right thing for the wrong reason, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least he did the right thing.
My wife is friends with Jill Biden. It would make it awkward when they have their play bridge.
So here, the Squirrely says, it is so incredibly embarrassing that the only person to vote against NATO expansion in the Senate, for which no one even bothers to provide a coherent argument for, is a Republican. Bernie Sanders just totally cucked, as Mild Kalinsky said.
I was handcuffed to a toilet, and they did the...
Glenn Greenwald comes back. Even during the Cold War, extreme militarists... I should try to do my Glenn Greenwald impression. I don't do one. I've never even tried.
Yeah, you haven't. I was wondering.
Like he said, mine.
Come on, Jimmy. Jimmy, even during the Cold War, extremist militarists recognized that the most dangerous... Is that close?
That's pretty close.
You're hitting something.
I mean, these fucking people. Is that good? Is that close?
You're getting closer.
Okay. I'm so sick and tired of these. Even during the Cold War, Jimmy, extreme militarists recognized the most dangerous act would be driving Russia and China into a union, then declaring their united alliance the U.S. main enemy. Seemingly overnight, under Biden, this madness became D.C. consensus. And fuck those people. I hate those liberals more than anything. This is my Glenn Greenwald. But anyway, that's very well said, Glenn. He's got more to say. Each time a new country, I don't want to do an unflattering.
Yeah, don't commit all the way.
I'm committing too much. Each time a new country joins NATO, it means the U.S. nominally other countries, but really the United States, is extending a permanent, limitless vow to defend that new country in any war and to treat its wars as our own. That's what it means. Who does this benefit? How are American lives improved by this? They're not. The answer is they're not. Unless they own stock in Raytheon.
Yeah.
Revolutionary Blackout Network. So, this is our good friend. He says, in the 1970s, Bernie Sanders used to call for abolishing the CIA. Now he's funding proxy wars and expanding NATO. What a sad, pathetic fall from grace. Well said, Nick. Here, Squirrely Zipper got in there one more time. Oh, also, the only way the expansion was able to take place is because Turkey was appeased in its oppression of the Kurds. So if you're celebrating this as some huge triumph for the safeguarding of human rights and democracy, you're a scumbag of the highest order.
Wait, can we not stop screwing the Kurds over
Wow.
at every turn?
Every turn.
That's like amazing.
They sold the Kurds out again.
Kurds, you know how it goes.
Kurds. What do you think? We have a negotiation. You are going to come out on the short end of that stick, no matter where it is or what it's about. The Kurds got screwed over.
I mean, just relentlessly. And then we team up with them and say, like, we're not into it anymore.
The Kurds are getting screwed over for Sweden and North.
They're looking at Ukraine like, yeah, Ukraine, you'll be over here with the Kurds soon.
So, wow. But I'm going to guess the average American is probably on board for expanding NATO. I mean, I haven't done a poll, but I'm going to guess.
NATO, that's good, right?
They're NATO. NATO's good. They oppose Putin.
The green color I like.
That's right. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys, right? NATO is the good guys. All right. Anything you want to say to this, Jackson?
I'm not sure if the American people would be supportive of that. I mean, they voted for Trump, who famously called for trying to defund NATO at the least. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes for Joe Biden pushing for this.
The majority of Americans would go, what is that?
What is NATO? Yeah, the majority.
That's the majority.
Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy coming to your town: Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Detroit, Rochester. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our dates. See you in Denver, too.